And we're back. We have 4 people with us today. Just a refresher, I'm Angela Young. I also am an unschooler. We have an unschooling family. I have 4 kids. So 3 of them go to an in-person Sudbury school that I also work part-time at. I'm a conscious parenting coach. And today I'm with my little 1-year-old son who's joining the conversation too. And Andrea's here this week, who also hosts these calls with me. Andrea, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, hi, I'm Andrea Quagenti. I'm an admin with Angela for the Self-Directed Education Group on Facebook, and my daughter and I are traveling in our RV, and she's bored, so she's gonna literally hang out with us. Yeah, so thanks for your patience. We're in a new campground that does have internet, but I couldn't get it to work on my computer, so now I'm on my phone. And we're just rolling with it. So
awesome. Yeah, and Cynthia's joined us today. Hi, Cynthia. You were with us on a call. Really? Oh my gosh, I'm so sorry. I have my son with me. I see Carissa too. And today, Kitchi is also joining us, and we have just met. And I would love to know, you were telling us a little bit about a nonprofit that you started and how your son is a teenage self-directed learner. Would you like to say anything about that before I mute myself so no one can hear my baby? I'm so sorry.
No problem. Hi, everybody. My name is Kitchi McBride, and I'm currently residing in Maryland, but for 20 years, we lived in Hawaii, and we moved to Maryland last year. I started that nonprofit 2020 in Hawaii. Then I had to stop a little bit because we had to go with the process of the moving. We temporarily stayed in Virginia before we found a place in Maryland. The nonprofit I founded is basically promoting self-directed learning, encouraging parents to give their children more time to understand or to explore their interests and spend more time in that, and then eventually evolve from learning something that they want and then adding something that they need so that they can transition, eventually hoping if they wanted to be there to encourage them to join the workforce, and so they can integrate well when they're older. But it's pretty much for the younger years, really at least K to high school or something, encourage them to spend more time with self-directed learning activities. And I established this because my son has ADHD, and he has he's also in the he has Asperger's speech language disorder, and trying to fit him in a school is trying to find where he fits in the school was a little bit challenging, although he's very smart. So I decided around high school to homeschool him and make it more of a self-directed learning approach. So right now we're going to graduate him. He's going to be 18 on May, and looking into, he did accepted into a college, but after several, we thought about this because there's the cost of the college, and at the same time, whether because it's more, it's a lot of curriculum that is a more program designed, or whether we do what we do when we were homeschooling, we just get certain list of courses that he want to learn, put them together and make it meaningful based on what he wants to do. So we're sort of gearing towards that. It's more cost effective and it's probably more meaningful. And as I observed my son, I wanted to learn more about it and learn from other parents' experience, and maybe we can help other families through the nonprofit. So that's about it with me. Thanks.
so nice to meet you, and great to hear of your nonprofit. Definitely share it in the group, and you can even let us know more, exactly how you help, and if parents would just contact you. And then I don't know if you do some type of coaching, or do you want to get into a little bit more detail?
Sure. So the nonprofit, basically the programs that we have or in plan, because I'm still trying to find sponsors, or is it possible? We initially focused on learning something or most of the things that are not taught in school, but it's more adaptive to current environment. One good example is finance, health, and technology literacy. They're not taught in school, they're not in homeschool, but you use them every day. And it could be something, so I look at it two ways. I always recommend to start in what a child wants to learn, because that's their interest. And then you add on what they need, because down the road, I mean, practically speaking, they have to make a living. So if they will do that, might as well do it doing what they want. So one very good example is my son. He loves photography. So we found out that he's a very gifted artist, and he loves to do it a lot. So allow him to learn how to do it. So provide him all the resources, then he continues to do it. Then eventually when he's ready, I start to talk to him about what does he think he wants to do? Is it something that he can envision himself that he would he make a living doing that, because that's what he likes. Because if he's going to do something else, he might just be stressed, just like mom and dad. We're doing something because we went to college for it, or we're doing something because we have to make a living. So sort of like providing some guidance. Is that something that you want to do? Then he says yes. So one time he told me, I want to learn more about it. So he's ready. He said, should I go to college for it? I think I want to look for courses so I can be better at it. So before, he's just learning it by himself. Eventually, he's looking for more structured resources. And so I told him, you can go to college, or you can just take individual courses based on what you want. Photography is wide, he does not like portrait, but he loves landscape and nature and wildlife. And do you make a living doing that? He realized, oh, not yet, maybe in the future when I'm a known artist. And then he learns that real estate photography would make him money. He knows how much it makes, So he's just gonna look for maybe certifications for that, or learn it by himself or something. And then as I see that, I can see other areas, because one thing I know that my son couldn't do is to work in an office. If you have ADHD, it's hard to work in an office. Somebody tells you, you come here at a certain time, you leave at a certain time, you do this, and that's difficult for him. So understanding his condition, he knows he cannot do that, but he can run a business, he can hire people. So that's when at this age, maybe you want to understand bookkeeping, not to the point that you're going to do it, but just know it enough so you can inspect somebody you hire for doing it. So it's more helping him, like when he say, I want to make a business doing this. So everything that he needs, and that's where the help comes in. If he doesn't like it, he doesn't have to really understand it into the detail, but having a good idea what it is so that he knows who to hire, what to look for, and who he's going to hire would help him. And it's more geared towards that. And then what are you going to do with finances? It's something that maybe a lot will not like, but they would need. So, but when you introduce it to them, you have to be very careful, because it has to be like bookkeeping is probably not something he would like, but when he runs his own business, then he has to balance his checkbook. So it would make sense. So sort of like I was looking at it that way versus because before I thought, okay, self-directed learning, anything he likes. But then as he grows older, I'm like, what are we going to do with you if you're not going, if I had no idea how you're going to make a living or something? I need to at least provide that guidance and then let him decide. If he changes his mind and he switches down the road, it's fine. But I'm pretty sure that the skills that he learns, so basically it's about learning a lot of skills that he could use that could help him more of be able to make a living for himself.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. It brings so much to mind. I'm gonna speak as long as I can in between like my son making a bunch of noise right now. He's like climbing a bookshelf. But yeah, it brings up so much to mind. I think as kids get older, like the teen years, at first, a lot of the interests are a little, how do I say, like not less organized, but it's not as clear, right? It's like, oh,
Yes.
you're enjoying watching videos or you're enjoying like playing with a camera. But it seems like as time goes on, they by themselves desire to become more organized, maybe not by themselves, like have it all together. Like, how am I going to make this make money? And how am I going to be practical with this? That might require a little bit of help sometimes. But I have also heard of teenagers who, not even teenagers, even younger than teenagers, like be interested in running their own business. Like my son, I saw his wheels turning the other day. He really likes Transformers toys. And he went to a convention where they were like, all these people were selling these toys, right? And like the really collectible type stuff. And his wheels were just turning. He's like, wow, I really like this. And we had a conversation. And I was like, would you, I would support you if he's looking at all these toys that he really wants to buy, but he can't afford them with his current allowance that he has and the money that he saved. And I'm like, honestly, if you had done the research and you showed me that, you found some at a really good price, and because that's what he was showing me. He was like, hey, I found this at a really good price. Can I get this? It's a lot less than I saw them selling at that convention. And I was like, honestly, if you showed me the research and you thought it was a business idea, I would use my credit card and I could help you buy that, and I'd help you start up a business. And he turned to me and he was like, you know what? I'm more of the collector guy, is what he said. I'm like,
Yeah.
well, in order to be a collector guy, you have to be
Yes.
able to fund your collection. That's just how, life works. And I saw his wheels start to turn. And I think there's a gentle way, to express to our kids some of the realities of life that are part of life. And it has to do with our personal boundaries too. In my family, we don't have a whole lot of finances to throw around on like really expensive toys. It's something that, and I don't necessarily see that as a problem. It's something that's a huge opportunity for learning. It's like, hey, look, as a family, I'm here to support you, but there are limits to that. And you are totally capable of creating the life that you desire, but some of it's gonna come from you. And that's gonna be an amazing process for you to go through. That's not a reason to like think negatively about ourselves or anything like that. That's actually a gift. You're going to learn so much. And one last thing before I end this long-winded monologue is that when you were speaking, it was just reminding me so much of, I have like neurodiverse friends and stuff, and there is just, I just feel like there's nothing broken within anyone, and we're designed exactly for the life that we're meant for. And just because we don't fit into a box of like my friend has a really hard time. She's a little older than I am. She has a really hard time showing up on time. She has like ADD, and she went to college for a certain job, and she struggles really hard. And it's just an example of like, it's okay if you don't fit into a certain box. That's not your box. You got to create a different box, and there's nothing wrong with you. It's just that you're designed for something different. There's part of our, self-growth that has to do with, like changing our habits or becoming better. But there's also a part of it where it's like, no, I'm good also with some of the habits that I have. There's nothing broken there. I just need to find a container that works for me, or create the container. So, all right, that's the end of that. Thank you.
Awesome, Angela. Thank you. I'm just trying to see who's on the call, and if anyone else wants to come say hi, and if there's anything that you want to talk about, or we're just kind of, of course we're open. So if anybody wants to jump in and say hi.
I'll jump in and say hi. I don't know how much I have to say. I'll do a quick intro, and but
Awesome.
I'm here anyway. So my name is Cynthia Turner. I off by people I know personally. I go by Cindy, and I live in Framingham, Massachusetts, and so not too far from Andrea. And my two kids are each girls. They are 17, and the older one will be 22 in about 3 weeks. And So we've been home education since 2006, since my older one was 6. And I've been a home ed advocate, community advocate, almost as long, locally, statewide, non-geographically, whatever. And I have a organization that I'm trying to grow called Initiatives for Community-Based Living. So far, I only have a Facebook page. We're working on the rest. And so part of my advocacy and just our lifestyle, which is what stemmed everything, is deschooling, self-directed, unschooling. I'm not big on labels. I never needed labels for myself, but I'm very, very familiar with them. So that is part of my advocacy. It's important language and so forth. Yeah, so that's us. My older daughter actually lives out in closer to you, Angela. She's in LA. Yeah, she's been there for coming up on 3 years, minus many months during COVID. And that's that. So here I am. Oh, one more thing, and that was a question for Kitschy, and I was wondering maybe you could put it in the chat, but also say the name again. Was there a name to your organization again? What was it?
Yes, it's called My Learning List.
I figured I could say hi too. Hello. Jack's now out of the room, so if he hears my voice, he may come barreling back in. But I'm Carissa, and I'm also in Massachusetts. We're in Manchester by the sea at the moment. We have a 5-year-old, and so just kind of getting into learning and, the more, I guess, he's been learning his whole life, I guess. But as far as like what our plan is for the school age years, and we're choosing self-directed learning, so learning as much as we can about it. Now we're actually in the process of putting our house on the market and hitting the road and doing road schooling for the next 6 to 12 months at least, and then kind of seeing where we decide to go and land from there. And that was actually something when I met Andrea at a play date here in Manchester, or I mean in Massachusetts, was kind of like, ooh, you guys are doing that. We've talked about that. So, it's been kind of fun to watch your adventures and travels and all of that, inspiring. It kind of also helped make it more of a, catalyst for us. Like, we've been talking about it and I'm like, look at, they're doing it, so it's kind of been helpful for me to be able to kind of move things along on our end. But we're officially we're listing May 1st, so hoping everything goes well with the house sale, and then we already have all of our plans scheduled for the summertime to be away, and going to be heading to Wisconsin to hang out with my family a little bit, whom I haven't seen since 2019. So going to spend a month there and then head out for the winter time, somewhere warm. No idea where yet, but that's kind of where we are. We are also interested in kind of the self-directed. Jack's had some sort of neuro issues in this last fall that he's always kind of had a little bounce to the beat of his own drum kind of thing. So we like that. It's a positive energy, and we want to keep encouraging it. And I feel like we've kind of felt like putting him into like some sort of formal schooling program right now might discourage him, and I don't like the idea of, I worry that he would feel self-conscious or disappointed, or right now I want to keep building his confidence, and he's smart and he's brilliant, and he wants to build things, and he gets ideas and draws out, you know, he has ideas of, we're looking at camper vans right now, or at motorhomes right now, and he's like, well, why doesn't our motorhome have, you know, a way to take the wastewater and turn it into fresh water, you know? And it's like, he, you know, he's asking those kinds of questions, and so we take, you know, those, we kind of go along with it, and, you know, what do you think we would need for that? And maybe that's something you could design someday, and I bet you a lot of people would buy that. You know, like, it's, you know, like, he's so kind of the whole, like, turning it, not, we're not turning a 5-year-old's ideas into a career, but he does actually a lot of times say, you know, I want to build things. And we walked past an architect's office the other day, and there was a bicycle shop next door, and he was asking about how that worked, and they were in the same building. And, you know, I said, well, these are architects. And he's like, oh, architects draw things out on blueprints and design buildings. And he's always said he wants to be a builder and he wants to design things, but he like, this isn't something we've ever sat down and taught him. He's just learned it and grasped it from being interested in it. And so, you know, he's like, I want to make blueprints someday, and I want to design a building. So it's just a matter, you know, like, similar to what you were saying, you know, like, we're, you know, hoping to just fuel his interests and keep him going in those directions. But I think it is important for people to learn life skills, like finance and things like that. So I kind of see where you're coming from that perspective. And he's been learning things as well, you know, and just in our whole transition to move, and, you know, wanting to keep the house and get a camper van. And we talk about how financially that doesn't work out. So he asks how many pieces of gold we're going to get for the house, and how many pieces of gold it's going to take to buy a camper van. And he has offered to sell some of his things that he doesn't play with anymore. And, you know, so it's we're making it a family adventure and a family process, and just kind of us and where we are right now.
Yay, how exciting. So nice to see you, Carissa, and to hear. That's like
I've been trying to make
super
it the last few
exciting.
weeks.
Yeah, a lot has happened. I'm just thinking, like, resource wise, the best group I know for traveling in the US, you know, in a motorhome or camper for family is
Mhm.
full-time families. And I think we talked about that one. I think you're already in that one, right?
Yeah, I joined that one. And I heard they also have like a membership group or membership that you can, like,
Yes, I've never paid for anything. I'm just in the
Yeah.
Facebook group for now, and
Yeah.
that seems to be great. And then the other resource that's awesome for traveling full-time or even part-time is that Thousand Trails.
Yeah.
You know, you can see if it's right. It's not right for everyone, and they've got different level camping passes. We just have the basic, which is like a little under $1,000 a year, but there are packages that you can go up to like 7,000 a year. Which, when you think about it, it's like, oh my God. But then if you're traveling full time and you were looking at a $2,000 mortgage, or like me, a $1,900 rent,
Yeah.
and now we're in the process of shifting our home base as well. That's a different story. I'll talk about that a little bit, just, you know, if anyone has any ideas for us. But if you're thinking like, okay, I don't know, you know, we were paying, plus it's not just your mortgage, right? So if you,
Utilities and yeah, all of that. Yeah.
yeah, so if you total up like your home expenses, and then you're like, wait a minute, even if we get like the best camping pass for 7,000 or whatever, if you can go park to park, that's going to cover your camping space,
Mhm.
your electric, your water. But then of course gas goes up because you're traveling and having a great time. And potentially, depending on how you like to do your activities, that might go up a little bit, because you're like, when are we ever going to be in Texas again? Like, we're doing all of the museums, and, you know, so that budget might go up a little bit. So that's,
Mhm.
yeah. But of course, if you want, you know, feel free to contact me directly if you have any questions, or if you have any right now.
Yeah, no, I mean, we're researching our, you know, where we what we use as a home address after we sell. So we're researching that stuff and looking into, you know, whether it makes sense to do Wisconsin and use my sister's address, or do we just jump right in and do Florida, you know, and that kind of thing. So we're weighing all the pros and cons and the health insurance stuff and, you know, figuring that out. But right now we're pretty, we can be we will be able to be flexible. So that's helpful. So as long as everything goes as we plan. So, but right now we're just kind of jumping in with it as it is, you know. So kind of one of those like make your manifest where you want to be and think about, you know, just make it happen. So that's kind of what we're doing.
And I think Jack's a good age, you know, you said he's 5, right?
Yeah.
I think that's a good age. I think now Valentina is 8. She's turning 9 this summer. And last year she seemed much more flexible, but this year she's saying like, oh, I just made those friends and now I'm going to miss those friends and now we have to leave. And I think, you know, it didn't seem that big. Maybe she mentioned it a little bit, but she's definitely feeling more emotional with moving. And that's another benefit to being in the Thousand Trails network, because there's so many families that are traveling. If there are campgrounds in the areas that you want to travel, of course, we've only done the East Coast, and there's plenty for us on the East Coast. We're in Florida now. There's plenty in Florida, so it checked that box for us. But we've actually met up now, even just with 2 years traveling part-time. We've seen some of the same families, and that has been really nice. Yeah. But at his age, I think that it'll be easier on that part of it because everyone's his friend, right?
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly.
So
yeah, no, we're excited about it. And I'll definitely probably pop little private messages to you here and there, but yeah, we're we're working on it.
Awesome.
Getting it to happen.
Yay.
I'm wondering if anyone has any questions or anything that's coming up for them in terms of like unschooling or parenting or anything coming up right now, just to jump into relevant conversation.
Yes, I do have one. I mean, do you guys have, I guess none of you are in Wisconsin, but like we've been looking at if we do change everything to Wisconsin, there's a their homeschooling kind of guidelines or requirements are pretty basic and not too demanding, I guess is what, like they do have like a requirement of 800 or so many hours per year. So I was just trying to figure out like the best way to document that kind of stuff. You know, obviously we feel like learning is happening all the time. It sounds like they only need to really have it documented for like high school age, you know, like they recommend keeping records for high school age for graduation and for being able to apply for college and things like that.
Did they specify what do they want in the record?
So there's a lot of details about like what doesn't count. So like I was kind of discouraged or like a little disappointed because around Massachusetts there's a lot of like enrichment programs and things like that. Like Jack's we're doing like an outdoor play group with a Waldorf school, you know, and he loves it, and it's once a week. But it sounds like in Wisconsin, those things technically don't count towards the total number of hours that you have to do in a year. And so it made me think like that they are required, like maybe at a higher level. I don't think at his level they would require much as far as documentation wise, but like it did say, I'm still like trying to dig into it, but the resource I was looking at was saying for high school to basically keep logs of like how these hours are spent, which is just so like,
because I was thinking, was it like tied to subjects? That becomes complicated when they're like tied to subjects.
I think it was they could do any subject as long as you're covering like 4 basic things, you know, like, you know, math and English, and it didn't matter how much time you were spending on each It just was that you had to have the total number of hours of learning, but then it said, it gave specific examples, like they can actually participate in classes in the school district, up to 2 classes per semester or something like that, but those hours don't count towards their schooling, which just doesn't make sense. to me.
Okay, they can
Doesn't-
participate, but it's not included in the
It
outputs.
doesn't count towards, yeah, it's so bizarre. It was so bizarre. It was like, yeah, like they could take, you know, an advanced algebra class or something, and then like,
Yeah.
it didn't count towards their total hours of schooling. So I don't know. It was just interesting. Like,
So
trying-
I have,
yeah.
oh, go
No, go ahead.
So I'm wondering a couple things, and well, I do have relatives in Wisconsin. I actually private in the chat, I
Oh,
wrote
okay.
something directly to you.
Yeah, okay.
Not home ed people. I do have a cousin. They did home ed for a couple years, but they're in Chicago area, so it's a different state.
Yeah.
But I have extended my mom's family is from Milwaukee area, so I have a bunch
Yeah.
of family in Milwaukee and Chicago and all that. So anyway, I'm sure at least a couple of my family members know home ed families, so I can like,
Yeah. Oh, yeah, yeah.
but my question is, from where did you get, because you obviously read about the home ed regulations there, what was your source, if you don't mind me asking, or
Yeah,
was there?
I have to look it up. It was a while. It wasn't recent. It was like 2 weeks ago. So
Was it like a state organization for homeschooling in Wisconsin,
it was
or?
both. It was both. I actually looked at like the .gov site or whatever, you know, like whatever their kind of .gov is. And then also there was like the is there one that's like HLA or H something?
HSLDA, okay.
Yes, yeah.
So let me, because, and especially because this is a recorded call, I am going to say something very briefly about HSLDA, but I will not get into the whole
Okay.
thing. HSLDA is a very controversial organization.
Okay.
I will leave it at that, and we
Okay.
can privately. But one of the things, and I'm saying this as a parent and an advocate, fine if you want to look at them to see what they're saying. I would never suggest anyone use them as their source of information. And they may in fact have Wisconsin home ed regulations fairly accurate, but they have a reputation for a few things. One of them being not exactly the most accurate information when it comes to home ed regulations. And it has caused problems in Massachusetts, for example.
Okay.
And so, and you live in Massachusetts, so if you're on the forums, you may have seen the unending references to AHEM, which is our trusted state organization here.
Okay. Yeah.
And no, only number one, because they're trusted, and number two, it's like, because it's just a lot of misinformation going out. Like, so for example, they have Massachusetts flagged as like a difficult state. It's actually, when you
Right.
compare states where you actually have to report in the country, we're actually one of the easiest and least
I think
intrusive.
I noticed that when I was looking at it, and I was like, that doesn't seem right.
So I guess my encouragement would just to be yeah. So, but that being said, AHEM, as you know, is not an unschooling organization that's all inclusive, which is wonderful. But when it comes to seeing what the regulations are, and I have ties to Pennsylvania too, and they have pretty bad regulations, and a lot of people go, I'm like, okay, go to the Pennsylvania unschooling groups. So I guess I'm saying the same thing to you. If you go,
yeah.
so you have people that understand reporting minimally, right? So you have the home ed regulations in writing, and as you know, here in Massachusetts, yes, it says this in writing, but then let's get down to the nuts and bolts of it. What in practice does that actually mean?
Mhm.
So, and I think that really applies to any state where you have to report. You know what I mean? It looks like one thing on paper, but let's, like what is it actually in practice? And unschoolers generally are the ones that understand to report minimally, and they don't want all that,
Right. Do you know anybody in like Mass, I guess, that doesn't, I mean, and Andrea, maybe you're figuring this out too, though, like if you guys are transitioning to changing your home base. Like I mean, if we sell the house, that's gonna happen, you know, soon. And then if we did want to stay Massachusetts domicile, like, I mean, we'd probably, like, we won't have an address. So I don't think there's a way we can do it here in Mass. Like I know in Florida and in, you know, South Dakota that you can get, you know, addresses through mail services, that you can actually register a vehicle and blah, 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 and register for homeschooling. But I'm just like, so far we haven't figured out a way that we could even keep Massachusetts as a domicile at this point.
So we still have our home base. So
Yeah.
we still have an actual address, you know, a valid we still have our apartment in Mass. But so I'm not sure, but I do know we actually just met a family last week and they changed their address to Florida and they're using a service. And she's very happy with the service. It has a street address and
Right.
they moved from, I'm trying to remember where they're from. Somewhere on the Canadian border. She's like, it was so cold, I couldn't take it anymore. So yeah, so I can tell you more, and I can even look into that service because she said it was so easy because they ended up buying a truck because they didn't even.
St. Brendan's Isle, probably, right? St. Brendan's.
That sounds familiar.
I think that's the one I've found that. Like,
yeah.
Because right now we're looking between Wisconsin and Florida, or, you know, like I'd love to keep, because Jack is having some, you know, medical complexities. I'd love to keep him, you know, on his current healthcare plan here, but I don't think that's going to be an option once we sell. That's been like, so I think we'll have to switch, which. Yeah.
You'll probably be the one to tell me what I need to do.
Exactly.
But yeah, that's Saint, what is it, Brendan? Saint
Brendan's, I think, is the one I found.
Yeah, she said she's very happy with that so far. They did it. I think she said that they left around October and it was already snowy. And I was like, oh my God, like I would have been running for that. But anyways, yeah, so she's loving it, you know, just with like, call it 6 months. So I can get you more information on that. But I wonder, Kitchi, where are you? Do you have any state specific info?
I live in Maryland, but you know, we moved last year, remember? So, and moving to, because my husband accepted a job in DC, and we're in the Metro DC area. So I had to study the 3 states, Virginia, Maryland, and DC. And I had to research the homeschooling laws because it's one of the factors, because Hawaii, it's very difficult there with the homeschooling compared to the DC, Maryland, Virginia states. So I was so excited. And then I had to do a research. So there's 2 things. I did use HSLDA as one, but I didn't just use them. So because I want to see what they're going to give me, because and they are located in Virginia. So I'm expecting that they know more about the Virginia area. They also gave me information about Maryland and DC. And then they give me a list of umbrella schools for both. And I joined the one in Maryland. And then we also use like a prepaid legal. In a prepaid legal, you can ask for an education attorney if you have a question for your specific state. And then a lot of those research. And then when I got here, I joined a lot of groups from Virginia, Maryland, and DC, and try to get a feel. And so when we move, we get the umbrella from Maryland, and I'm very happy with how it all turned out. So various resources and sort of like then join the groups, and you will get what exactly it is that you need to do versus just referring from one resource.
Awesome. Thank you. Yeah. I mean, that's a big factor for on the unschooling side is, you know, we become the teacher, right? So now we've got a bunch of paperwork, and of course we want to make sure it's done properly. And then it seems like where your level at, Kitschy, if you're gonna then, if your child's gonna still choose, right? Because if you're doing self-directed education, then if they're choosing to still stay home and be unschooled, then I think as they get into high school, you do, even if it's not required, you probably want to be, and Cynthia could probably talk to this, you probably want to be taking more detailed notes, because that's going to turn into a transcript for college if they choose
Right.
to go that way.
That's one of the things that I had a hard time, because my son got accepted to a private university in San Francisco, and they said that it depends on the state. If it's Maryland, I think he would be okay if there's a diploma or a transcript. That's what they told me. But I had a hard time with the transcript, because my son's it's self-directed, and it's a little bit based on Montessori, because Montessori is self-directed with structured materials. It's a little bit structured. And the reason why he's used with that is because it's in preschool, he was in a Montessori class, and they would tell me they still use subjects, but he's free to pick what he wanted. And he loves math. He does math from Mondays to Thursday. And then he would do geography, and then the others, something about, he would read, but that's the last thing that he's going to do. But that's what they told me. It's already Thursday, he's still doing math. He's counting the beads. So he's used to that. That's why when he's doing self-directed learning, he's looking for structured resources, but they're not a whole curriculum. So you have to he only takes what he wants to learn, and then he pieces them together. So they needed a transcript. And so what I first did is that, okay, I don't know how to find a transcript for unschoolers. So I researched Montessori transcripts. It's so interesting, because even a Montessori, she claimed to be a Montessori consultant. She couldn't present to me a template for Montessori transcript. So I had a big problem. This is at the time that we're thinking he's going to go to college. But I created something. Maryland, the umbrella helped me. And what they just wanted, they said, okay, let's do this. You have to create a transcript with descriptions. And then I think what I did at that time is I come up with a rubric. It's ABC, but it is a rubric wherein, it's self-directed learning and it's project-based. I have to have a good understanding of the program. I need to be able to communicate what that program is, and I have to organize it and present it. That's one of the challenges that I have to overcome. And I thought, in my mind, I had to learn how to do this, because this is something that I could share in the future. What did you do? How did you organize it? So I come up with certain descriptions, and with the transcript, you can see that I created it based on his interests. He spent a lot of time with doing photography, travel, and in the process, he learned science. He learned math, we even include driving, because he needs to go where he's going. So there's a lot in there, but it has to point to a certain direction. He's going to be an artist one day. And so, but at the same time, you want to see the math, the reading in the descriptions, and then there's a rubric, because it's a project-based. I still have, I have to pull it out, but if he completes it and he exceeds the expectation, meaning he finished early, that's an A. B is he's on time, but it's not where the expectation is at, or something like that. C, this is what it means, but there's really no F, because it's a project. You either finish it or you did not finish it. And then because he has ADHD and he got a language disorder, we don't do testing, but it's more of discussions, like at dinner. My son also loves history. And in the description, I had to explain that you will have to learn history, because you have to understand what happened in the past, so that you can relate what happened to those kind of stuff. Put them in the description, And that made the umbrella, oh, this is it, you got it, you just did the right thing. And then you created a rubric with an ABC, but it means, it has a meaning for us, because if you will think about it, those GPAs, the grades ABC, when you go to different schools, they mean different things. They're not the same. At least you have to come up with something that they could see, whether I even traced it like A is 95, B is this, but then they're not based on tests, but they're based on evaluations. You sit here tonight, you talk about what you learned in history, how it impacted the current, what's going on in the current event. So it's heavy on that. And then when it comes to literature, we don't do old school literature. We do like what he likes. He loves Star Wars since he was a child. So I never sat with him to read. What I noticed that he loves to watch the movies. So I bought the Star Wars Clone Wars books and I just left it. And then he plays with his Legos and then he would read it. I didn't know he was reading it. I just learned that he was reading it when he was in middle school, high school, when he knows the characters down to the detail. And every time he watches a movie, he could dissect, what's happening, what's his prediction and all that. So, I have to describe that. So how he learns it. And you know how it is, like if you're in sales, you need to be able to describe it and show them that, hey, he's not just in a program where he's not doing anything. So a lot of parents, that's where our work is going to be, so that it's presented to them in a way that's more meaningful. And in fact, it's actually much better than a regular transcript, because the transcript is created as if he's going to an art school. And HSLDA did tell me that, well, your problem there is that transcript might not work for other school. Well, why would I want it to work in another school anyway, if that's not his interest? It wouldn't make, I'm just trying to do something that's meaningful. He's geared to go into art school. It might not work, and it's fine, because that's not what his interest is. And if he goes to that school, it might not work really anyway. So I was aware of that when they told me that. But overall, that was challenging, but I'd be willing to help anybody who want to go through the process. So that's it. Thanks. Andrea, you're muted.
Thank you. Sorry. Thank you for letting us know that. And congratulations. It sounds like your strategy worked great. And so yay. And thank you, because I think a lot of us will need help. But I just wonder, Cynthia, can you talk a little bit more about unschooling transcripts? I'm sure you've experienced, you have some experience with that.
One would think. I do not have direct experience, and for the plain fact that neither of my daughters have had the need for it yet, that doesn't mean that there's no use in making one, right?
I just want to say that we're not going to use it anymore, because we kind of changed course because of the Parent Plus loans and everything else. So I just want to share that.
Well, on that note, and I'll go back to what I was saying, but on that note, what you're saying, and I heard what you said a minute ago, the way I view transcripts, in the way I've seen and heard other people doing it, it's no different than a resume. You're not going to hand the same resume to everyone, generally speaking, unless all the jobs you're applying to are pretty much identical, right? And you might change up your references or your cover letter, whatever. So in looking at colleges or whoever else is asking for something, they're all, you can't lump all colleges in the same, as the same thing. They're all individual. Same thing with community colleges, same thing with certificate program, whatever. My younger daughter is in a program that didn't require anything like that. because they take, I'm trying to think what age they start taking kids, 16 maybe? She's 17 right now. But anyway, she's getting her esthetician certificate. And if you're not sure what that is, that's skincare, a little bit of makeup, but mostly skincare. And after she's done that, so that's like a matter of maybe up to 10 months. So she'll probably be done this summer, and then she's going to move on to cosmetics and maybe something else or whatever. But they didn't require that. But yeah, each place is different. So the thing I was going to say is, for a couple reasons, one might want to make a transcript. One, it's for your own benefit, just to visually see what has transpired throughout the years, and I think most families I know, most home ed families I know, keep some type of lists. It doesn't mean they hand it to anyone else, like the school district, but just kind of like these are all the interesting books we read, and they have, a list of places they've gone and things. So there's usually some kind of, still, obviously, when you're putting in an organized form, still takes a lot of effort to organize and whatnot. But there's usually something to work from, collection of things. So it's always good to do. And then the second thing, it's always good to do, and then have it there like you would have your resume sitting there, and tweak it and update it as needed, so that if there becomes a time when you do need it, you're not starting from scratch at that time, which is what I will be doing if it is needed anytime in the near future. But that's fine, whatever. I have luckily the work I do, I own my own schedule, so I I have a little more time to deal with that. But so I haven't had, when my older one moved, it was for the adventure. She had already delved into projects in the business side of the music industry and all. And so it was kind of like, I'm moving, I'm going to New York City or LA. Obviously, I was pushing for New York City because we're in New England, but I lost. She went to LA. And so she's just, like a networking all over the place. Maybe eventually she'll take some classes or take some degree program, and then I already talked about my younger one. So I haven't actually needed it. With the state organization we have here, for which I worked for them for 5 years, several years ago. I know, and then there's tons of people like this, but I happen to know them personally. And so they have experience. Their kids are all grown, most of them. And so they have a lot of interesting experience and wisdom to put out there, in terms of writing transcripts and portfolios and whatever, because again, it's going to look different. Like my niece, my sister's family was homeschooled, which is where I first heard of homeschooling. Her youngest went to, actually in Baltimore, Maryland. I can't remember the name of the art school there. It's like right there. It's a big, well-known art school.
Is it Micah or something?
Yes. That's
that I heard that's a good school. And then I thought that was a cheaper school, and then I was shocked. It's even more expensive to where my son got accepted. Yeah, so I think it's like about 50,000 a year or something.
Yeah, I'm not sure of the cost, but she put together, and she's never been to school. Her sister went to school up through first grade, and her brother up through sixth grade. So anyway, so it's an art school, obviously looking way different than, Northeastern University, which is here in Boston, right? It's like they're just two different. So you put together a completely different thing. So my other resource for me personally, if I need it, is my sister, who's not only homeschooled her kids, but she's also an advocate, and she actually has an organization where she's an evaluator, because in Pennsylvania, you're supposed to have an evaluator. And she does all this work, and she actually helps people do exactly what you're talking about and build the framework for their home education, the transcripts and everything. She's been through it at least 2 times herself. And so there's plenty, and there's unschoolers. I remember Kitchi, you were mentioning that you were looking for unschooling transcripts, and you at least that
Oh,
couldn't find any, so you focused on Montessori. There are resources out there. There's one, and I can't remember off the top of my head, there's one at least one well-known unschooling advocate, like that we probably all know, and I can't remember who it was. And they have something on their site where you can go and, it gives examples, so they are out there, and maybe through one's local unschooling group, they can get resources and stuff. But anyway, I'll be quiet.
yeah. Well, what happened was we were talking with the financial people, and I even bought a book about the college and paying. And then I noticed that as I read the resources, the colleges right now are about $35,000 to $50,000 annually. And then I looked at the median salary, it's 60,000 or something. I mean, do you see that it's weird? You go to school for college for that amount of annual tuition, and the actual pay for median is not too far. And then a lot of them are actually designed, and they are not aligned with the current labor market needs. And I told my husband, this does not make sense. And to be honest, I went to school all the way. I went to doctorate. I have a master's, and my husband has a bachelor's, but he developed more skills than I did. So he got more opportunity. And that's the one I was trying to tell my son, you can go to school, and certain stats right now would even tell you that only 27% of those with degree are using their degree as a job, that they have a job that's aligned with their degree. And 41% of the jobs are, I believe it's just 41, but there's a certain percentage that they don't even need a degree. And then it's so interesting because I included my son with a financial aid, try to do a research about financial aid and all that. And then he said, Mom, these are horror stories. People took the loan, and then they're still paying it after several years, and their kids are already gonna go to college. So, okay, so let's hold off. Let's wait a minute, and let's see if this is a good option. Take the loan and all that. And so we're sort of like thinking about it, and so we decided that there are other certificates out there that he could take, and then he could start his business already. So it's more exciting versus. So basically what we're trying to do is what we did in homeschool. You sort of like get all your resources that you need, which makes sense to you, put them together, and then run your business, which I feel makes sense. So, so we're at that. But I do have a quick question with Cynthia. You mentioned about your child getting the certificates. Do you mind if I ask how much they cost right now?
I have to think. It's my ex-husband that takes care of that particular thing. She goes, if you were to look at a bunch of, I don't think they're technically called beauty schools, but whatever, those types of schools or programs, this was on the cheaper side. I want to say for her program, maybe 5,000.
Okay, thank
And
you. Mhm.
this was a shorter program. I think if she went for hair or something, it might have been
Yeah,
involved. And so this was, and it's a very self-paced, which she needs. Like
yeah.
if I were to go into the story of my daughter, but she needs to go on her own. So they figure in about 10 months she'll probably be done, but if you take a little longer, that's fine. But I think it's about 5.
That
Yeah.
makes sense, because I looked around for the photography, they're around 7 or something. And I just got curious because when we started the nonprofit, we're thinking, do we provide financial assistance or something like that, and to who do we give it to? And one of the things that we encourage is skills development, and usually these are like trade schools, because we don't have a lot of people, like the construction companies, they're really needing some new younger people who are good with that. And because of the stigma that we put with trade schools, that they're not as good as colleges, so a lot of kids who are really crafty or very good in carpentry, they don't go to those schools, they're being directed to colleges. So we want to, you know, if we know of someone, that's why it's called My Learning List. If we know of someone who's passionate about working with their hands, you know, and they want to do that, maybe we could raise funds and help them do that. But I was just curious, you know, this includes like beauty schools, because I know a lot want to do that. So I just got curious how much they cost nowadays. So thank you for sharing.
Wow, I just want to say thank you everyone for sharing. This has been a really practical call, and I think it sheds a lot of light on just how diverse everyone's just so different. And that's the beauty of unschooling, I think, is that it leaves a lot of freedom to do what suits you and your family and your particular child. It's been really, I think this is helpful for people on a practical level, just hearing how people make traveling work, how you make, you know, college decisions and stuff like that. So thank you. And Kitchi, I totally invite you when we post this live video, which I might not get up till tomorrow, but I'll do my best to message you. And you're welcome to share the link to your nonprofit, I believe it was, in the comments. So anyone who's watching this, if you want to find a direct link, it'll be in the comments. But it looks like we are to the end of the call. So I just want to say thank you, and feel free to unmute yourself. And we can all say goodbye to each other and hopefully see each other next week.
Yay. Thank you. It's so great too. Thank you,
You
Kitchi,
were
for
too much.
sharing your story, and
Unmute it,
congratulations
unmute
to
it.
Carissa, and hi to Jack, and thank you,
Bye.
Angela and Cynthia.
Bye.
These are
Thank
our
you, everyone.
earplugs. We
Yeah.
muted it, so now we have the earplugs.
Bye, Valentina. See you.
Bye,
Yay.
Valentina.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Nice to see you.